just before 1 o'clock on Saturday afternoon. Let me adjust the camera slightly. We're going to continue with some woodblock printing or woodcut printing or relief printing, whatever you want to call it. We are printing from a Sheena woodblock with oil pigment. This was a multi-block print. And let's see if I can pull up the comments today. I couldn't pull them up yesterday. Here we go. It is working. Amazing. I don't know why it wasn't working yesterday. So that's why I started early, so I can make sure I have the comments pulled up. And let's move this glass palette over a little. And we'll move this over a little. So I started printing already. Good afternoon, Pam. So I started printing already. I did about 5 sheets, so I'm just going to continue with what I'm doing. I have a squeaky roller today, but it's the right size for the job. I'm going to do these trees in 2 sections, so I'm going to do the bottom portion first, and then I'll do this second portion. And I figured I'd run through the bottom portion first with this color, which is a little gradient, and then I'll mix the new colors for the top portion. We'll do that all in one stream. So this is kind of the base tone or the basic shapes for the tree mass that's at the bottom corner of the print. Here's the print so far. And that's just going to be some trees down here. Today we're using a traditional Baron from Japan. Does not require a lot of pressure, this impression. And there we have some tree texture or tree shapes. There'll be a key block over this which has more structure and more values. So that's the first impression for today. We'll hopefully be doing 2. So we're just going to run through these quickly. And slowly our print begins to develop. I actually took my Dremel tool and I hit a couple edges and a couple little holes here and there just to add a little bit of texture to last a minute. So again, this is the print so far. There's another impression of some trees, the bottom half. It's been a beautiful day in New York City today. It's cool, but sunny. All the leaves are changing colors. And I was able to get on a bicycle ride this morning. I was out the door at 8:30 a.m. and I got to ride 25 miles with a friend of mine. I didn't want to get out of bed and go out into the cold because it was about 47 degrees this morning when I left the house. So it was a little chilly at the start, but it was a beautiful ride, and I'm glad that I did that. So this green color that I'm using is a little bit of a gradation. It's mostly a little bit of ultramarine and cobalt blue, and then this earth green that I have. And then as I transition towards this lighter green, I added a little yellow ochre. And I mentioned in the past the greens are a hard color for me, but also a lot of people have a hard time controlling green as a color. So I'm slowly trying to be a little bit more, have a little bit different the way of approaching it. So you can see that there's a gradation, green gradation behind the tree, and there's also a green gradation in the impression that we just made. But I use these little color swatches here. So I just roll out the colors from the day before and I save them, and then I put the color on top. Try to judge my color off of those little samples. Yeah, we'll see, Pam. Thank you. We'll see how it goes. So we have about 5 more to go, and then we'll mix up some color for the next set of trees. So I don't think I've done a live stream on a Saturday yet. This will be the first one I do. Maybe I have. I'm not sure. I'm afraid I don't have enough ink here to finish the job, but I think it'll be enough. So we could do a before and after. What these look like before and after. I also made a little painting of the same scene. It's a little different, but it's the same cliff. And I've been looking at it kind of for some color reference, but this is an oil painting. It's a different color or a different light scene here, but everything's mostly in shadow. And there's just a little bit of light kind of still hitting the top of the trees, and the light in the distance is really hitting that plane of the ground plane in the distance. But these are one of the frames that I've made. These white oak frames. I still have to sand it. I had to putty up a couple holes. But this was a painting I did of that same area. So I've been looking at that for reference for the colors. But I want this one to be more, a little bit more graphic and a little bit more bold. And just trying to change it up a little bit. Sometimes I look at my finished prints or my finished paintings and I say to myself, like, that's not my work. That's not what I want to, that's not the work I want to make. Or that's not exciting, or I'd like my work to look differently. So I need to continue to try new things to figure out and to develop as a printer or as an artist. It's always good to continue to learn and experiment. But for this print, I think the goal was to get away from the photograph and I used a sketch in my sketchbook, and I worked mostly just from the sketch. I made the key block first, and then I made these color blocks from the key block. So the goal of this print was to get away from the photograph and not make it look so photorealistic. So it's going to be a little bit more graphic, I hope. So we got, let's see here, 1, 2, 3 more, 3 more, almost done here. And then we'll mix up some new color and we'll do this top portion. So we're getting a little bit of ink here. Just make sure we clean that up. Let's see, 2 more, real quick. Show you out the window. The sunlight's coming through really nice in these fall trees. Let me just open up this curtain. I'll bring the camera over and you can see. Just give you a shot out the window here. hard to see. All right, one more to go, and then we'll mix some new colors. I'm going to use the same roller here for this top portion. I don't want to change the colors too much, just enough to make it a little bit different. So I think I'm going to add more yellow into the green mixture. Because these pine trees have like a warm green. There's some red mixed in with the green. Right. So all the prints are in the drying rack. Let's clean off this block a little bit. I'm just going to take a piece of scrap paper. Just take the ink off of this block. So Durer print. Adam and Eve getting kicked out of the Garden of Eden. So I'm just removing the ink from this block just a little bit. There's not too much ink on there. Not too worried about that. All right, let's move this out of the way for a second. Let's focus over here. I'll lower this. Focus over here for a minute. Sorry for the camera moving so much. All right, so I'm gonna try to use some of this ink. I'm just gonna take it all and join it all together. I'll use that. Just put that up there for now. Let's see, can we, sure we can see that. First I'm gonna clean up this palette area. I don't know if I get too crazy here. Sorry. All right. Now that that's clean, I also need to roll out the ink that's left in this roller. So I'm going to do that on some scrap paper as well. A little piece of paper stuck to it. All right, so I have a little bit of this pre-mixed kind of earthy green. I'm going to start with that, and then the green we just scraped off my palette. I think that might be a good place to start. I think that's a good color. So we could put that on a piece of paper. A piece of white paper. Let's see, here's this piece of scrap. It's hard to tell on the camera, but it's more of an earth green. And I kind of like that, and I kind of like the value of it. And then as we go further up the trees for this next one, I'd like to have a little bit more cleaner green. I'm just going to put a little on my palette here. This is called earth green. And then also a little bit of yellow ochre as we move up. So just put a couple piles of that. So I want to start with this color. Pretty happy with it. I think that will be like towards the bottom. I'm just going to make a small pile here. And then I'm going to take reserved some of it, add a little bit more of this cleaner green to it, and then add a little bit of this yellow ochre. I have some of this little bit of white or lighter green mixed in. Just add some of that to heighten it, heighten the value a little bit. It's looking kind of good. Let's see here. It's not light enough yet, so I'm going to add more of this heightening color. I don't want this to be too dark. It's still very dark. So we're going to add a little white to it. I'm kind of going fast here. I'm like being a little messy. I'm going to start a new pile. There's a lot of ink here. That's a good color. I'll put that right next to the dark color. We'll be making a gradient. So we just try to line those up in a nice pile. Always cleaning my knife as I work. Just want to clean up this area here. And we'll be lining up our pigments in the width to the width of our roller here. So let's do one more color. Excuse me. Sorry about that. This one's going to be much lighter. A little bit more yellow. See what this looks like. So these are the colors we're looking at right now. Kind of want a little bit more white. A little more yellow. There's a black going over this, so I don't want it to be too dark. Let's see. I think this will be good. Clean up that area a little. I think that should work. I'm just going to pull some of this pigment down to get this started. Making this even. I'm looking at the grid that's underneath the palette to kind of line this up. So when the roller goes into this, pick up an even amount of ink right off the bat. So those are our colors on the white paper. They look very dark, but they will be lighter once we print them. They'll be going over that blue sky, mostly color. So our roller still has a little bit of ink on it from before, but that's okay. I'm just going to scrape off this junk that I see. Alright, so let's move this ink out of the way, get our camera set up. Bring the block back. Let's move the camera over again. Gotta raise it up. Sorry for the... That should work, I think. So we'll be working on this section of trees now. So here we go. We'll just pull out the ink slowly. So you get a nice even bead of ink when you roll it out that way. You just take your time and you just kind of pull it back. This roller isn't the best quality. It's a little irregular, especially in the middle. So you have to pull down a little bit of extra ink here in the middle. It's a squeaky roller. Let's apply it to the block. And I want to make sure I don't get this dark color. on this bottom section of the trees because that was where it's the lightest point. So I want to make sure that this is clean. So I got to pay attention to that. So I have to make sure I clean that. Section. All right, so let's take our first impression here. Oops. Now the ink, this ink down here is wet. I'm not too worried about it because I won't be pressing down in this area. I'll just be pressing down up here towards the top. So I have to get familiar with where I'm pressing because it's a new block. So just going lightly and finding the edges of these tree limbs. I think that'll be good. Let's see what happens. Hopefully these colors worked out. There we are. So not a huge difference, but you can see the green that's on the bottom is a little bit more blue, and the ink on top is a little bit more of a natural kind of warmer green. So I think that'll work. So our print is getting more interesting. It's getting busier. So I'm happy with those colors. You can see down here it overlays this orange, creating some interesting colors down here. So I didn't add any transparency into this, but these inks do have a little transparency naturally. And so the colors underneath are influencing the way they look. All right, I'm happy with that, so let's just keep going. So this is today's work. It's not crazy exciting, but it's a critical part of the process. Every layer adds to the print, and as they build up, we work towards the final piece. Again, make sure I clean this one area that's in question. Make sure I clean that Kento area. So this is the before. It's looking very empty up here. Now this rock face is looking very lonely. It's kind of flat, but we'll be printing the gray on the rocks next. It'll be a transparent layer. And then we have the key block, and that's it. This print will be finished. So 2 more impressions after this. So I should get to those. Get to the gray tomorrow, and it's Monday. Print the key block. So this print should be finished by Monday. And then a week from this coming Monday, I'm installing my exhibition at the Gungs. It's a pretty quiet stream today, not too many people commenting. I see a couple people are out there. Printmaking is really fun when everything's going your way. So far I'm having fun with this print. Hey, nice to see you again, or hear from you again, Marius. It's been a while. Hasn't it? I think it has. Maybe you've been watching the replays. I think this is live stream number 33. Yeah, you don't have to chat. You can just watch and enjoy. But I appreciate you watching. Hopefully you're getting some painting done. I'm still enjoying my Vasari paints. I am going to have to work. So this is the gray color that I'll be printing next. And I have to work some areas. It's a little too blocky. I'm going to carve away some areas and add some more textures. So I have to kind of play around with that one a little bit. And it's going to be a very transparent color. But I really have to make sure I do a good job on this. So I feel like this one can really affect the overall look of the print. And I had these grays going up into these trees, but I might actually just stop it and cut these tree limbs away. I don't know if I need it, because the key block is very heavy up here. So I might just keep the gray in the rock section, and then from the tree and these limbs up here, I might just take it away. I'm not sure. I don't think it's necessary, because I like the way these greens are. I would hate to cover these in a gray, because there's a key block going over this. Permanent alizarin, cobalt violet. Ooh, cobalt violet. That sounds like a nice one. Indian red. Permanent alizarin. Yeah, alizarin. Is that a alizarin? I know alizarin has the light fastness, or it can fade over time, right? The alizarin, I think alizarin is running out. There isn't much alizarin left in the world. Whatever makes that pigment. So you got to transition to like quinacridone colors, I think. But I do have alizarin crimson on my palette usually. One of these days I'm going to go to their store, their showroom, check it out. But I have a feeling if I do that, I'll be leaving with $400 worth of paint. Yeah, I don't think they do either, or at least they're not supposed to. Yeah, I don't think you're going to run into problems with alizarin crimson for at least 100 years. So I'm not too worried about it. Also, I don't use alizarin as like a color on its own. It's always mixed with other colors. You use it just to tint a color, really. I mix it a lot with green, with a lot of sap green to create like a black. Or I mix it with ultramarine blue to make a nice purple or violet color. You can also mix it with phthalo green and you make a really nice black. But I try not to use phthalo too much. It's It's a little too intense. Yeah, it's a really strong pigment, alizarin. Also makes a good orange if you mix like a cadmium, yellow medium, or if you mix it with like a little cadmium red, you get a really good primary red. It's a little cadmium red and alizarin together, and maybe a little touch of yellow, you get a really nice like, primary red. Because the cadmium red's a little too hot, and it looks a little too like synthetic. But if you add a little bit of alizarin crimson, which is a cooler, so a nice red, like a deep red, like an apple red or something. So I missed some printing here. So I'm going to put it down and see if I just didn't. So it's this area over here. I'm just going to put it down again and see if I missed it with the Baron. Which I probably did. So I didn't spend enough time with the Baron over on this side. And I didn't get a good impression. Probably because I'm thinking about painting now. Talking about oil pigments and thinking about oil painting. Yeah, that's better. I just didn't put enough pressure down. Yeah, I don't think I'm going to put any gray up in this area. I think I'll ruin the cleanness of these colors. I really like what's going on here. And there's going to be black over top of it. So I'm just going to keep the gray, the dark gray down in the rock section. Maybe a little bit here around the rocks. I'll probably actually just end it right at the rock there. So I'm going to carve all this away. I don't need it. So it'll be one more impression here and then the key block. This will be a simple print, but I think it'll be effective. I would like to do another time of day though. I mentioned I wanted to do a night scene with this one. So this one doesn't take too long to print. And I'm using oil, so I might cut a moon shape out of the sky. And do this with some nice cool blues and violets. Some intense gradients around the moon. I'll maybe do some interesting gradients in the sky. And just experiment with it. And the problem is if I put a gray, like a transparent gray over these greens, it's going to make it cool and it's going to affect it in a, if you put an opaque over a dark, it'll make it really cool, make it look really strange. You could do it with Mocha and that was the, I'm pressing in the wrong area. These originally was designed to, I was going to use Mocha water-based pigments on this, and you could do a transparent gray with water-based. So if you had a green up in the trees and you did a gray with just Sumi ink, it would go right through, like a thinned out Sumi ink, like a gray value. It'd go right through the green, penetrate through it, and it would darken it. But with oil pigment, it reacts differently. I could show you an example in one second. Let's see if we can show a little example here. So we have some like darker green here. So if I take I'm just going to dab a little white on my finger. Just so I'm thinning this out, making it transparent like it would be a gray. Look how cool that is compared to just a pure white. See, it's like a minty. I think I'd get that weird effect. That's not what I want. So that's like a, you know, a transparent white over a dark green. You're getting this like cool color. It's almost like a purple. But it's a weird effect that I'm not going for in this print. No, you're not distracting me. I distract myself. You're actually keeping me focused. I mean, I'm essentially painting or thinking as a painter when I'm using these oil pigments for this print. So it's exactly the same thing. So you're using oil pigments and you're layering them and you're using transparency. It's the same as painting. So my oil painting informs this style of printmaking and vice versa. And then using water-based pigments or Mokuhanga, it's more similar to watercolor painting, which I've been getting into it a little more, some watercolors, and I bought some gouache, which is an opaque watercolor, and you can use watercolor and gouache together. And I've actually been trying to get out and do a little bit of sketching in a little like a gouache sketches. But gouache is a little bit different than watercolor, and it's getting the values is difficult because they dry a lot darker than they look on your palette while they're wet. When they dry, they dry like a whole value lighter, maybe even a value and a half lighter, I think. So you think you have the color and the value that you want, and then after you apply it, it's much darker. But you can layer it just like acrylic paint or like oil paint. So it's an interesting medium, and I definitely want to explore more with it and use it to sketch, work out compositions. I don't know if I wiped the block here. So after this, I have to clear off this table and I have to start making more frames. I have to cut some more stock for some small frames. Start gluing those together. And I also got 3 frames in the mail. I have to open up that box and get that stuff out. It's a pleasantly quiet day in my neighborhood today. Knock on wood. Yeah, I like this green. I like how this green in the tree kind of brings out that purple that's in the distance. You couldn't really see it before, it just blended in, but it actually, you can see that purple now, just like a distant mountain. And the way I'm organizing this in my rack is just because they're both, is I just put a gap so I know which ones I just did, and just put a gap in the rack. I can show you the drying rack here that I use. I have all my prints here, so I just leave a gap, empty space, so I know to pull from here. My room is an absolute mess, my studio. My whole apartment is just an absolute mess. I have projects going on in every room. Luckily, my wife is very tolerant she's patient, and she's tolerant of my my artistic projects. And I still have my fluorescent green socks on for my bicycle ride this morning. It's important to have some high vis on when you're out there riding your bike. High visibility. Yeah, it's noisy in the city for sure. It takes a little bit of time to get used to that. Noise canceling headphones are an important tool for me. So let's see, we have about 4 more to go. So this is going on over an hour. Thanks for everyone that's been hanging out. I'll just keep going until I'm finished. But feel free to go enjoy the rest of your Saturday afternoon. I'll probably be printing tomorrow the gray, because even if this is a little wet, it shouldn't matter too much. And I'm not adding any drying agents in these colors. The paper seems to be soaking it up very well. So even if this and the area up here is a little tacky, it won't affect where I'm printing here tomorrow. And then Monday we can, maybe Tuesday, I'll have to wait a day to make sure it's fully dry before I do the key block. I'm also going to print some key blocks on just some new sheets of paper. I might just have those available for people. They might just like the solid black key block impression. Or I was thinking I can maybe wash in some watercolor into it. To a couple of them. This is the squeakiest roller that I own. This area is really high. Keeps picking up ink. Have some dust on the surface there. I think this print will turn out okay. I'm not sure. The key block's a little heavy with black. It's a little intense. So I'm worried about that. All right, 2 more. And the last one. After this, I'll say goodbye. Everyone enjoy the rest of their weekend. I should be printing again tomorrow at some point. I'm not sure when. I'll try to give you a heads up on my Instagram. I'm not sure if that's how people are following along or getting the notice, but if you're not subscribed on my Instagram, I've been just posting on my story when I'm gonna, maybe half an hour, an hour before I'm gonna post or start a live stream. And it's just my name. You can find me at Instagram. This is the last one. Oh, no, I already did the last one. That is the last one. All right, so we are finished. I thought the one on the bottom was, but I already printed that one. All right, so we're finished. So now I have to wipe this ink off the block. Let's just do that now. It's okay if the ink dries on this wood surface. It doesn't affect it. It doesn't affect it too much. I'm gonna try to clean it off a little bit at least. That's good enough for me. So, enjoy the rest of your weekend. Thanks for joining, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.